Good morning, folks. Ari here from Direct Auto Outlet in Fair Oaks, California. This vehicle is actually one that is near and dear to me. It is one of my own vehicles. Today we'll be doing a demo and test drive of this 2007 GMC Sierra 2500 HD LBZ Duramax Turbo Diesel. This is the classic body style, as you can tell. This body style came out in the late 90s, and in 2007 it was somewhat of a transition year where GM made both the old body and the new body, and they separated it by name only by calling one a classic and just referring to the other one as an 07 model or a new body style. This will be a test drive video. I have actually just recently done a walk around and overview video of the truck, going over all the improvements I've done to it, all the accessories I've placed on it, and giving you a detail of the ins and outs of it. So be sure to also catch that video, but this will be more of a demo and test drive video, giving you an idea of how this vehicle drives and performs. And for those of you who are in the market for one, or on the fence, deciding whether you'd like to get a diesel truck or this specific diesel truck, or this compared to maybe a Ford or Ram, this will be an informative video for you. Hope you hang out with us and join us for the entirety of the video. But without further ado, do want to show you, we do have this Viper auto start system. It does have a delay so that the glow plugs have a chance to warm up, but once you press it in just a few seconds, the truck will start all on its own. I have owned this truck for about a year and a half, purchased it with 113,000 miles. It's currently got 155,000 miles on it, so I placed just about 43,000 miles on it. 42 to 43,000 miles. The truck is in great shape. I've done a lot to it to get it here. It did need some mechanical work in the very beginning. Oftentimes when you're purchasing vehicles from dealer auctions, as this one was for me, you'll find that there are some items that need to be addressed on the vehicle. This one was no exception to the rule. Kind of a funny story with this particular truck. This particular truck actually sat at auction for quite a long time. When I acquired this truck, I actually was interested in it from the very first weekend, or the very first day that the truck was for sale. And I've actually oftentimes been the high bidder on the truck. But the truck did not meet the reserve price, and we had a kind of a stubborn seller, franchise new car dealership from the Bay Area, somewhat of a stubborn seller that was holding out for the price that they wanted. They were holding out for quite some time. The truck actually sat at auction for almost a year, ran just about every week, and most weeks I was high bidder on it, and then I completely pretty much just got uninterested in it altogether after unsuccessfully not being able to purchase the vehicle. But during that time, the vehicle did have a few warning lights that came on, a few things that happen, as they do when vehicles sit for long periods of time and don't get used. So got the vehicle all worked out, have 155,000 miles on it now. This was supposed to be a transition truck for me. I previously had a 14 Ram 3500 dually with a manual transmission that I had actually ordered brand new from the factory and had it custom built for me. And I sold that truck in hopes of buying another Ram, and was unsuccessful in being able to get the Ram because I really had my heart set on the manual transmission. The manual transmission in the 19 and up body style for the Rams became a non-option. So unfortunately, I found myself without a truck. But I acquired this truck, and it does quite well for my needs. I have been doing some towing with it. I have upgraded the tow hitch to a Class 5 tow hitch, and my receiver to a shock a receiver with an airbag system in it to reduce the amount of shock and vibration you get from your trailer. The vehicle performs beautifully. We have a tune on the vehicle, and it has 5 settings, as you can see right there with the DS5, that is, switch right over there. We have a stock setting on it. We also have an economy setting on it. We have a light tow setting, a heavy tow setting, a sport setting, and then an extreme setting. I also do have a CTS3 monitor over here with EGT probe, so I can monitor all the vitals of the truck. This is one of the most comfortable trucks I have ever owned and operated. I added the rear airbag suspension, the Firestone system over here that it has its own built-in compressor, and I can inflate the rear and deflate the rear right from inside the cabin of the truck, and it allows me to level out my load when towing a trailer and keep everything level, keep the vehicle from performing poorly. The engine is so capable. The 6-speed Allison transmission that comes with the 2006 and 2007 models is such a big improvement over the previous year. The previous years with the 5-speed, it was enough, it was sufficient, but it wasn't quite up to snuff with what you get here. However, probably the biggest thing that I enjoy about having the LBZ is the VGT turbo. The VGT turbo that's inside this vehicle, VGT, variable geometry turbo, it's also referred to a multi-vane turbo. People refer to it as several different things. But long and short of it is it allows me to have engine braking. When I have a heavier load and I'm coming down, for example, in Southern California, going up and down the Grapevine, entering into the Los Angeles area, it is a huge incline spanning several miles long, and prior to having that, I really had to take it easy. Coming down the hill, I had to go into a low gear, make sure I'm slowed down to about 45-50 miles per hour. I was pretty much stuck in the slow lane along with all of the other big rigs out on the road. It wasn't very pleasant. I did not want to overheat my brakes and cause the brakes not to have sufficient power if I needed them. But with the engine braking now that I have with this tune, once it is in the towing setting, I can use the engine braking and it slows me down. When I'm in setting 2 or setting 3 and I let go of the accelerator, when I'm going down a hill, and in tow haul mode on the gear selector, the vehicle actually does use its own engine braking or diesel exhaust braking to slow itself down. A great feature, works fabulous, and it is essential for safety if you are going to be towing with the vehicle. Other than that, seating position in the vehicle is extremely comfortable. Very soft ride quality and very forgiving. Another upgrade I did to the vehicle is I performed a change on the fuel tank, the midship fuel tank. I increased it to a 62-gallon capacity. The smaller fuel tank that the vehicle currently had when I purchased it, or not currently has now, but had when I purchased it, was small, and especially when I was towing and going into metropolitan areas like San Francisco or Los Angeles, I found that getting into a smaller gas station with a trailer in a metro area was not fun. So with the 62-gallon tank, if I'm not towing, I can get about 850-900 miles per tank. I'm sure I can get over 1,000 miles per tank if I watch it and I try to hypermile, but it's not really my style of driving, and quite frankly, if I was trying to hypermile, I would just get a Prius like the one in front of me currently. This vehicle was not intended for fuel economy, although I did get pretty good fuel economy with it, but it was not its original intention. But with towing, if I tow for an entire fuel tank, which I've done several times traveling from state to state, I can still easily get 750 miles, or at the very least, if I'm going up and down a lot of inclines, 700 miles per tank. The tune does have the vehicle set and limited at 29 pounds for the turbo boost, which is actually higher than stock. It is quite noticeably different than stock. Lots of additional power when you need it, but still did have a mild tune put on it. 29 PSI is still not too extreme. It allows me to be able to maintain proper function of all the other components in the vehicle. The transmission in it is stock. It's not a built transmission. The rear end is stock, although I do have additional cooling for both the rear end and the transmission. Have a Banks rear diff cover with additional fluids and a Mag High-Tech transmission pan with an additional 2 to 3 quarts of transmission fluid capability. So that does help in keeping these fluids cool, but still did not want to overdo it and overpower any of the other components in the truck. I originally was a Ford fan, and I know Chevy guys don't like Fords and Ford guys don't like Chevys, and I'm really just a car guy, so I like everything. I think the Rams are probably the most attractive looking of all the trucks, and the Fords I always thought were the best quality. However, that is objective, and going from year to year there are such differences. For example, in 2007, this year, this compared to a 6-liter Ford Power Stroke, this would be far superior. When you go into the next year with the 6.4-liter Ford diesels as compared to the 6.6 Duramax, they got even worse on the Ford side. But you know, you go back, the 7.3 Fords were absolutely great. This LBZ diesel is probably one of the best Duramaxes, bar none, in my opinion, that have ever been created, both for longevity, durability, and the fact that this is actually the last year you can get this vehicle without a lot of the smog equipment that came standard and became mandated, such as the diesel exhaust fluids and particulate filter. The particulate filter actually became mandatory. The diesel exhaust fluid not until a few years later. But these actually breathe a whole lot better. They sound a whole lot better, and it's mostly just really due to the lack of all of that additional smog equipment. These are also a little bit more tunable and a little bit more customizable. But for me, it's really just a truck that I can get behind the wheel and drive for hours and hours at a time without feeling excessive fatigue. This was not supposed to be a long-term truck for me. However, I can tell you right now that I'm probably never going to get rid of it. I own several other vehicles, and even if I replace my daily driver truck or my towing truck with something else, I am going to continue to keep this one. I'm extremely happy with it, and yeah, quite frankly, the value of these are just going up and up. They're only going in one direction. So extremely pleased with the truck. And it really, one of the greatest things that my wife also notices about this one as compared to my Ford when she drives it is she feels a lot more confident when behind the wheel of this one. She says it handles a lot better, and I do have to agree with her. The bolstering on the seats actually keep you in place a little bit better than the Ford. The Ford has a more flat seat, and it's a little bit of a wider cabin, so you feel like you're a little bit more snug in place in this truck. And this truck handles fabulously. I mean, you can keep up with the twists and turns with just about anything out there. Plenty of power to get the job done, and handling and braking is fabulous on it, so no complaints there whatsoever. I would absolutely buy this truck again, and I've had just about zero mechanical problems with it since I've had it. When I first got it, again, it had the check engine light on. We had EGR issues that we had resolved right in the beginning when we first got the vehicle. And I believe I had a problem with the dimmer switch for the interior lighting, but you know, that was minor. It was a $7 or $8 part on Amazon. No big deal whatsoever. Great truck. Highly recommended for those of you who have the earlier generation Duramax. The 2001s and 2s, you know, they were great. The 3s were great. They had a lot of problems with their fuel injectors, and it was quite a labor-intensive job to get those fuel injectors done, and they would almost without exception fail. The next generation in 2004 and 5, they did reduce the labor time in getting those injectors serviced, and they were also better injectors, so you know, no additional problems with the injectors. However, unfortunately, they put a radiator that was way too small. Cooling system was not sufficient in the 04s and 05s, and a lot of people ended up having head gasket issues and overheating issues. And then it looks like with the final generation of the classic body style Duramax, they really got it right with the LBZ. I actually did upgrade the radiator even over the stock, which was an improvement over the previous years in itself, but I did increase it to a higher capacity radiator just because I didn't want to have any issues. I could hot dog this thing with a heavy load all the way up a large hill, and my temperature doesn't really go far beyond about 220, maybe max 225 degrees. I try to keep my exhaust gas temperature no more than about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit for any long extended periods of time. A few seconds if we go to 1350, 1400, just to pass is okay, but I try to keep it under 1200 degrees just to make sure that I'm not overpowering any of the internal components of the engine. But as you can see on the twisty, turny roads, such as the one that we're in, vehicle drives just beautifully. I will just be quiet for a moment so you could hear the exhaust note. great sounding truck. Very smooth, very quiet. I think it's just right, really. I've been looking at a lot of the newer vehicles, and was kind of a fan of the F450s, the new 6.7s that they currently have. But with the vehicle shortage right now and how difficult it is to attain vehicles, it just, you know, and not to mention the cost of newer vehicles, it just really wasn't an option for me. So with this truck, I'm extremely happy. Would highly recommend it to anybody who's in the market. You really can't go wrong with any of the generation of the Duramax trucks. If you're looking at the classic body style, whether it be the early 2000s all the way up to 2007. But as long as you know the strengths and weaknesses of each year and familiarize yourself based on what your needs are, I think you got a winning formula. Allison transmission on these are just about indestructible. GM has had a lock on the Allison transmissions for years and years, and I believe that is just recently, in the last year or so, not been the case any longer. But the Allison transmission, one of the best transmissions you can get. I sure do hope that Ram or Ford switches to the Allison. I think it would be far superior to what they're currently using. Although the Ison in the Ram is pretty good. A little clunky of a transmission, but pretty good. So folks, as we make our way back, I just do want to thank you again for sticking with us. If you've stuck with us this long through the video, thanks for hanging in there. Hope you found the information we presented useful and helpful to you. I'm proud of this truck. It's in good shape. I've put all my finishing touches on it. I've recently replaced the steering wheel with a leather wrapped steering wheel. Just recently also did the headliner in the truck because it had its common failure points right around the top of the doors and the windshield where the material was drooping down. I have been using this truck on such a regular basis that I just really didn't ever have the downtime sufficient to be able to get items like that done. I really didn't want to operate the truck with the headliner and all the wires and cords hanging out from the ceilings. So I had that done recently. Other things I've done is the lighting in the rear. It's great for when you're towing a trailer. You hit this button right down over here and it lights up your trailer surface. The other front lighting over here is great as well. I have upgraded my headlights to LED headlights. They are quite bright. They're the type that have a fan behind them to keep them cool, and I have heard mixed reviews on those types of headlights. Some people say that the fans quit and then the lights overheat and cause them to fail. I have not had that issue as of yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, and we'll give you a longer term review of the truck at a later time, perhaps when we maybe hit 100,000 miles on it, which will probably be before no time. But for those of you who are in the market for a diesel truck and not really sure which kind to get, feel free to leave me some comments and leave me your questions and concerns in the comment section. I'll be happy to reply back to each and every one of you. And you can also phone us down here at the lot at any time as well. Just look us up. We're on Google, we're on Yelp, and happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you have. Once again, I want to thank you for taking the time and joining us and looking at our video. And we certainly hope to interact with each and every one of you. And we hope you all have a great day. Thanks, and pleasure talking to all of you. Bye-bye.